As I've said before, it seems to me our responsibility as leaders of China and the United States is to ensure that the competition between our countries does not veer into conflict, whether intended or unintended. Just simple, straightforward competition. And it seems to me we need to establish some common sense guardrails to be clear and honest where we disagree and work together where interests intersect, especially on vital global issues like climate change. It's why we believe, and you and I have talked about this, all countries have to play by the same rules of the road, why the United States is always going to stand up for our interests and values and those of our allies and partners.
China and the United States should respect each other, coexist in peace, and pursue win-win cooperation. I stand ready to work with you, Mr. President, to build consensus, take active steps, and move China-U.S. relations forward in a positive direction. Doing so would advance the interest of our two peoples and meet the expectation of the international community.
Today, we're finally getting this done. So my message to the American people is this: America's moving again, and your life is going to change for the better. This law is going to make high-speed internet affordable and available everywhere in America, urban, suburban, rural, and create jobs laying down those broadband lines. No parent excuse me, no parent should have to sit in the parking lot at a fast food restaurant again, just so their child can use the internet to do their homework. That's over. This law makes us the most significant investment in roads and bridges in the past 70 years. It makes the most significant investment in passenger rail in the past 50 years and in public transit ever. So what that means is you're going to be safer and you're going to get there faster, and we're going to have a whole hell of a lot less pollution in the air. The bipartisan law will modernize our ports, our airports, our freight rail to make it easier for companies to get goods to market, reduce supply chain bottlenecks as we're experiencing now, and lower cost for you and your family. And folks, when you see those projects starting in your hometowns, I want you to feel what I feel: pride in what we can do together as the United States of America. Folks, you know, the same goes for my plan to build back better for the people, getting folks back to work and reducing cost of things like child care, elder care, housing, health care, prescription drugs, and meeting the moment on climate change. I'm confident that the House will pass this bill, and then we're going to have to pass it in the Senate. And it's fully paid for. It will reduce the deficit over long term, according to the leading economists in the world. And again, no one earning less than $400,000 will pay a single penny more in federal taxes.
The increasing polarization of our country is keeping us from getting things done, and we have a responsibility to do better. The American people want us to see us coming together. They know that despite our differences, we should be able to figure it out and work together to solve big problems. We can start by recognizing that finding common ground to advance the interests of the American people should be rewarded, not attacked. Mr. President, in a moment you're going to sign this bill. I will say that you and I will disagree on the tax and spending in the other priority you have, the reconciliation bill, but I think we can both agree that this infrastructure investment shouldn't be a one-time bipartisan accomplishment.
This infrastructure bill will help us meet the challenges of our time, strengthen our crucial supply chains, and lay the foundation for another generation of economic prosperity. This bill can be summed up by a four-letter word: J-O-B-S. Jobs, jobs, and more local jobs, more good-paying jobs, more union jobs.
This is a great accomplishment, and there's more to come. And so happy that hopefully this week we will be passing Build Back Better to give tax cuts to America's working families, to create millions more jobs, to lower health care costs, and all of it paid for by making everyone pay his or her own fair share.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Bravo. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, Your Honor, I have a motion to make. This time we would ask that the Honorable Reverend Jesse Jackson, who I believe is still here, of course, he is, Your Honor, I think we all know, an icon in the civil rights movement. He, not just a witness to it, he is the personification of it. And in other circumstances, I think everybody would be happy to have their picture taken, maybe get an autograph. But in the context of this trial, we object to his presence in the public gallery inside the courtroom. We note that there is a jury assembly room capable of holding, depending on how we socially distance, several hundred people, where these proceedings are being televised live in real time. The issue that was brought up previously is how many pastors does the Arbery family have? We had the Reverend Al Sharpton here earlier, last week, and I'm not keeping track, and I think the court has indicated the court doesn't intend to ask anyone to keep track of who was in the gallery. But I don't know who Mr. Jackson, Reverend Jackson, is pastoring here.
Mr. Goff, at this point, I'm not exactly sure what you're doing. I have already ruled on this court's position with regard to the gallery. And with all candor, I was not even aware that Reverend Jackson was in the courtroom until you started your motion. I have indicated the court's position. The court's position hasn't changed. At this point, it's almost as if you're just trying to continue this for purposes other than just bringing it to the court's attention. And I find that objectionable from the court standpoint. I have said over and over and over in this trial that I am attempting to ensure that in this courtroom that the defendants receive a fair trial. And I will continue to do that. I have heard the objection. I have ruled previously on my position with regard to the gallery, and that is unchanged.
By bringing that gun, aiming it at people, threatening people's lives, the defendant provoked everything.
In closing arguments at the murder trial of Kyle Rittenhouse on Monday, the prosecution accused the teenager of provoking the confrontation that led to him killing 2 men and wounding a third during last year's volatile protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin, saying Rittenhouse instigated the shootings by brandishing his weapon.
When the defendant provokes the incident, he loses the right to self-defense. You cannot claim self-defense against a danger you create.
Kenosha County Assistant District Attorney Thomas Binger at one point demonstrated how he said Rittenhouse pointed the semi-automatic rifle at people, telling the jury to ignore Rittenhouse's argument that he was attacked and shot 3 people in self-defense.
When his case explodes in his face, now he comes out with provocation.
Defense attorney Mark Richards called the prosecution desperate for its apparent shift in strategy, noting that Binger had not focused on provocation earlier in the trial and argued that Joseph Rosenbaum, the first man Rittenhouse fatally shot, was the aggressor.
Mr. Rosenbaum was shot because he was chasing my client and going to kill him, take his gun, and carry out the threats he made.
Under Wisconsin law, a person who has provoked a confrontation must exhaust all other options before resorting to deadly force. During rebuttal, Kenosha County Assistant District Attorney James Krause told the jury that Rittenhouse could have done any number of things to Rosenbaum, who was unarmed, but decided to shoot him instead.
Punch him in the face, kick him in the testicles, knee him in the face, hit him with your gun. You don't just immediately get to shoot someone.
Earlier on Monday, Judge Bruce Schroeder dismissed a misdemeanor charge against Rittenhouse for illegally possessing the AR-15 style rifle he used in the shootings, siding with the defense, saying the wording of the law was unclear.
6 is dismissed.
The judge said the jury will begin deliberations on Tuesday.
American journalist Danny Fenster was freed from a Myanmar prison on Monday. His release follows negotiations between former U.S. diplomat Bill Richardson and Myanmar's ruling military junta. On his way home, Fenster, the managing editor of independent online magazine Frontier Myanmar, looked frail when making a stop in Doha, Qatar, with Richardson by his side. Asked if he had been mistreated, Fenster said this.
I was arrested and held in captivity for no reason, so I suppose so. But physically, I was healthy. I wasn't starved or beaten.
Fenster was sentenced to 11 years in prison on Friday for incitement and violations of laws on immigration and unlawful assembly, a ruling that drew international condemnation. He was among dozens of journalists detained in Myanmar since a February 1st military coup that put an abrupt end to a decade of tentative steps towards democracy. Richardson, a former congressman and governor of New Mexico, said efforts to work with the Myanmar government on humanitarian assistance, including on vaccines, led to Fenster's release. A military-owned TV network on Monday said he had been freed on, quote, humanitarian grounds at the request of Richardson and representatives from 2 Japanese organizations. A source familiar with Richardson's trip said it was arranged without knowledge of the State Department or the U.S. Embassy in Yangon. A State Department spokesman did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Monday, but Secretary of State Antony Blinken commended U.S. officials as well as Richardson for facilitating Fenster's release.